Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Wapplewood. I'm Jerma.
And I'm PapaLlama.
So, before we start today's episode in proper, some of our more attentive followers may notice, hey, where have you guys been? You missed a week. What had happened was we had the very wonderful idea of, hey, let's do an episode where we react to the presidential debate, and we gather all the best parts together. And it was very fun, and we recorded it with a few special guests. And then, unfortunately, we got lazy, and we didn't edit together the episode by the date we were supposed to edit it, and we procrastinated a bunch, and then it got back one day after the date we were supposed to edit it and put it up. And then, unfortunately, the former President Donald Trump got shot, and we decided, hey, we're not going to do this. So that's been scrapped.
Yeah, so
and
that definitely put a kink in our plans.
yeah, we were already like very behind, killed all the things, killed all the hype there was to be, and then, oh boy, things got worse. But
Yeah,
today,
if there ever was divine inspiration as to what, not getting this thing out, it was that.
ain't that true? But today we have a fun topic. As I've learned, Americans are going to be going back to school soon. Not really up in Canada. It's more September when school starts, at least in my understanding of it. PapaLlama, how about you get us started on just the differences there?
I mean, we start like public schools in our area start. Public high schools will start early August. Like I said, some are gonna start August 8th, I think, maybe 12th, and then others I know about will start like private institutions will start like a week later, the 19th, and then uh, colleges, like universities, as you would call it, they always start a little later. So they'll start like the 19th at the earliest. But that's when we start, and then it runs like all the way to December. And depending on whether you're in high school or in university, you get like a longer break if you're in university for Christmas. Then you come back after January, and then you go all the way to May. If you're a senior in high school, at a lot of private institutions, they let you out like 2 weeks early in May.
Yeah, that's something
So
they also do up here. I went to a private school for most of my high school experience, and they started later and they ended earlier.
okay,
And
yeah,
it's like I would be entirely like classes would be overish in May, and then we'd have like one or two exams there, all depending on your course load. But you'd have a bunch of exams, and then you'd be free. Uh, but it was very much I had the benefit of a smaller school, so classes were just generally quicker and more content was covered because some classes I was 5 people in the room.
wow. So I only went to a high school. I was homeschooled until high school. I went to a Catholic private school, and at no point did I only have 5 people in a room. It was actually bigger than that.
Well, yeah, the school I went to was it was a very small school. It was a very good school though. Most of the teachers were very well educated, but a few of them actually had proper doctorates in their field. It was a very good
Knowing
school, and
knowing
yeah,
you, I would expect nothing less.
yes.
This all makes way too much sense. See, my sister was kind of can I use the word malcontent? I think that's the right word. And so she got in trouble. And rather than my dad doing what he threatened to do if he caught any of the kids engaging in illegal activities, he did not move us to Montana, which was a real possibility. But what he did do was send her to a school which had 5 students in a room. But it was not run by doctorates, and it was out in a field in the country. Like, you can't get into trouble. It was the opposite. It was like, get into trouble here. Best of luck.
Um, that send the family out to Montana. That's a threat.
Yeah, it was, and I think he was dead serious. I think he was very seriously considering it. It was like if you got engaged in any if you get engaged in a certain set of particular activities, that he would move the entire family out to Montana, which was my father doesn't really give blanket threats like or threats that he won't act on. They're all real, and so I think he considered it. But we were all like in high school at that point, or most of us. My mom had 4 kids in 4.5 years, so like three of us were in high school at a time, and and so I don't think he was quite ready to move us. But you still have to solve the problem. So, anyways, she went to a school with 5 people. That was the time I was trying to make 5 people to a class or fewer,
Yeah.
but it wasn't because they were fancy. It was the
Huh.
opposite.
Yeah. The there's definitely a benefit to smaller schools. One of the issues is that the social situations at smaller schools are very much troublesome because if you have only 11 people in your graduating class, you can personally hate all 11 people. Like, there's actual
Oh
trouble to
yeah.
be had there. 300 people, you can't have an opinion on
You can
300
find
people.
you can find friends in a group of 300 people if it
Yeah,
came down to it.
it's no, it's a very interesting experience. But one of my biggest pieces of advice to people in high school is ultimately a lot of the social stuff. The people who I went to high school with that I still talk with every day, the people that I do not plan on talking to ever again in my life. Don't worry that much about it. It'll matter now, and you may feel really worried about it, but it probably won't matter in the future.
That is extremely true. I have 2 friends that I still hang out with from my high school years, and I had so many friends. It was so much fun back then. And that's the thing is, make sure to have fun. Like go out and do things with people. Maybe today people just hang out on Discord and play video games. I think it's a little more than that still, but go out and do things and have fun and don't overthink it. But it's hard to express how people lives change. Not just lives change, you move away, you do different things, you go down different career paths, and sometimes you go down different life paths. So it's really enjoyable, but don't overstress it too much because I'm with you. Like eventually that group of people, there will only be 1 or 2 of them that actually persist throughout your life.
And
And
the one
you're
or
also
two
going to
who
stay.
persist,
Oh, yeah.
the one or two who persist aren't going to be the ones you don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the other thing. What happens in high school, like sometimes it feels like world ending, like it feels like it rocks you through your soul. Really, I look back on it and I'm like, what? Why did I care so much, right? But I get why I cared at the time, or and I think everybody goes through that. But the truth is, like you'll get clean slates and fresh starts later on.
The the only thing in high school that actually really mattered for me long term was that uh, the private high school I went to was very academically focused, and it forced me to stop being a lazy bum. I used to be I would finish the assignment, and then I would mess around, and I wouldn't really care, and I would do the bare minimum to pass. And like, one year I passed French with a 50, like pretty much on the dot, 51, which is the 50 of the passing grade. And I was just like,
Huh.
51, don't care any. And if I had kept that up through my life, oh boy, would that have caused trouble for me. I would,
Yeah.
I would not be sitting here talking to you. I'd be somewhere else. I'd maybe by the side of the road somewhere,
Yep.
maybe doing something else. But I, I, I had to put together a work ethic, and because I put together a good work ethic, when I transferred to university, and everyone transferring to university will be hard. It's a lot easier if you go to class and you do the work.
There's a lot of truth to that. I have a direct experience in my family, a generation above me. One of my uncles, He was a really smart guy, evidently in high school all the way up to university. And when he got to university, so he didn't have to study a lot in high school because he was just really smart. But when he got to high school, or I mean university, he did not know how to study, and it ended up being it ended up being a major player in him not being able to pass because he hadn't built that work ethic, and
Yeah.
so it ended up turning. I mean, that's not to say he couldn't have built one there. It just makes it infinitely harder. He didn't have it going to that. Sometimes like the smartest people have challenges in college because or university because they're not used to the work ethic. When you get to university, it's no longer about how intelligent you are sometimes. It's about how hard you work. My
Yeah.
father would tell me that about business. He would say that in every room he went to, he would assume that everybody there, in the building was smarter than him, but he was going to outwork them all. And he ended up being a very successful in a Fortune 100 company. So like, there's some truth to that. The work ethic, and is very important in life, and that is something you can get from schools. You can also get it in athletics if it transfers properly.
Oh yeah. When my mother went to university, one of the most academically dangerous people she knew was this guy who was a jock. And not only was he a jock, he was also an insanely good academic. And he
Yeah.
would just wake up, eat, study for like 8 hours a day, go to his uh, exercise, eat, go to sleep. And that was just his day-to-day schedule. And he became ultimately fabulously wealthy and was an incredibly strong student because he had the focus of a jock and the brains of an academic, and it was, from what I've heard, it was genuinely terrifying to some people.
Yeah, that would definitely be surprising. Now, to change topics slightly from talking about how like work ethics are important, because all that is important, we could talk about some of the more fun aspects. I thought like so I didn't do too I wasn't in university too long because I ended up finding a career field that didn't need that, and I was like, what am I doing here? Well, it's not bad to go to college. Everybody who's listening to this, go talk to your kids or talk to your parents. They're your ultimate your ultimate advisors there. But college it was fun for me, but high school was really the time that was like extremely enjoyable. Right, there was so much going on all the time, and then I got to know so many people in high school.
Mhm.
It was a blast, and I'm a social butterfly, so I gotta go talk to people, go hang out with everybody. You could talk to Snail, ask her. She's probably like, hey, Llama needs to stop blowing up my phone. So it was a great time for me.
Mhm. For me, it was actually a bit the other way around. I was uh, somewhat not sociable. There was one of the very odd remarks somebody said to me is that I was the sanest person in the room when I was in high school, which I think tells you about the sort of school I went to.
I was gonna say that sounds about right.
And but I was generally less sociable, and I took me a while to warm up to people. And like I, I went to a small school, and I couldn't tell two of my classmates apart until like 3 months in, and there's only
Hmm.
6 of us in the room. But then university was a lot different because I'd actually managed at that point get more what's the word, social backbone, and I was doing quite well for myself there. Um, what what was your favorite part of your university studies or high school studies?
Mm, favorite part of the studies themselves? I really liked
Yeah.
labs.
Ooh.
I was very good at labs. I'm a very much even to this day when I do stuff at work, it's probably kind of a hassle for my boss, who's also my mentor. But I very much like if he's trying to teach me something, I'm like, hand me the keyboard, you walk me through this, let me do the thing, and if I do the thing, I will remember it forever. But if somebody tries to show it to me, it's a lot harder for me to learn it. So I always loved labs. Anything that has to like me put my hands on something, play with something, do it. I can learn that a lot easier than just trying to like just the regular style of I guess I don't want to call it absorption learning, but hearing it and processing it, all that. So labs were fun. I love that kind of stuff, and I have so many fun little lab stories where things just went cockeyed, went sideways. You know.
Yeah. One of the uh, one of the things I always found the most dreadful was the sort of class where I just had to sit there and just memorize stuff and just memorize the information. Like one of something that utterly decimated me was like hydrogen bonds and how water holds oxygen. And I was like, ugh, my head hurts. But then when I had a class where I could actually like do con- actual thinking about it and make comments and ask questions in a more academic manner, that is where I really excelled. And it was just a night and day difference. I'm a very
Yeah.
more physical sort of fellow. Well, not that's not physical, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. And I think even the classes that are like supposed to be boring, that like aren't entertaining by nature, sometimes it depends a lot on the teacher. I've had some great, I'm sure everybody can identify some great teachers they've had in their life. Like I had a great senior year of high school. I had a great English teacher, which is wild because English is not extremely interactive, but it was like a super fun class because the teacher made it fun. And then he was really, really engaged. And then I had some classes where I felt like paint was you would rather watch paint dry. It was so rough, right? So it was very interesting the differences. I had some really unique teachers. I remember in university there was one particular teacher I ended up doing, the IT route, becoming a systems administrator. But there was a guy who taught. It was a retired naval officer, and he taught electrical engineering class, like the first two basic classes. And I took them, and I was good at them, and they were fun to me. And he was like, but I was doing it as a ancillary thing to support the computer engineering course or degree I was pursuing at the time. And he would tell me, hey, if the computer thing doesn't work out, he would say just like that, if the computer thing doesn't work out, you can totally come do the electrical engineering. I will help you get an apprenticeship. He's
Oh,
like, you'll be
that's
great at
very
this.
nice.
It's like, thanks. Never went that route, but I did enjoy those classes a lot because he was a cool guy. So not that circuits were fun to me, but I knew a bunch of people who were like, "This is the most boring thing ever. It's just like math, but for engineering." I was like, "Yeah, but that's kind of fun, anyways." It's like stuff like that. Teachers can make it fun for you.
All right, this is one of my more controversial opinions on this sort of thing. Like, okay, it's like math but for X. That's like everything in STEM. Physics is just applied math. Chemistry is applied physics, which is applied math. Biology is applied chemistry, which is applied physics, which is applied math. It's all math. Like you can't escape doing mathematics if you want to do anything physical. If you don't want to do math, take up uh
That's
take up the
that's
humanities, and even then, someo's going to show you, hey, I wrote an equation about Hamlet, and then
that
they're
may
going to
be
start
accurate, but a
crying.
lot of times it kind of depends on the person's acclimation to the style of math that's being taught and the teacher. Like if the professor or the teacher like can really link up with the student or students.
That's a
So
fair
like a
point.
lot of it comes into it. Because like I wasn't predisposed to like that class, but it ended up being great. And even today, like I ran like because of that class, I ended up doing my own little side electrical hobbies, like very very minor stuff, right? But it ended up being like my side gig. And when I had left college and was working as a young IT guy, was I would go and like fix motherboards and stuff for on arcades because I understood Ohm's law. Like that was like the only requirement, and it helped me like make extra money on the side. Stuff like that you'll never like that pan out in ways you can't predict. So
I had an intelligent comment, which I'm now struggling to remember. Oh, yes, mathematics. I had two math teachers in high school. Uh, one of them, both of them did not particularly like me. One of them, I was taking their course because I had to fill credits, and I liked them as a person, and they were fun. They, but I was in an advanced mathematics class for fun, while I wasn't good at mathematics, which infuriated everyone else in the room. Because I would just be sitting there, just like we're talking about calculus, and I'm sitting there like, okay, but what if we tried? Now, hear me out. What if we tried? What if we tried? Oh man, I've forgotten it now. I'm gonna have to Google this. I feel like such a poser, but
Doing research over there.
uh, oh yes, the quotient rule. That's what I loved and everyone hated. And I thought the quotient rule was the best thing since sliced bread. They all thought that I was deranged. I'm not gonna comment on who was correct there, but I liked the professor, and the professor was at least uh, somewhat permissive of my just okay. I'll call it tomfoolery for now. The other class I was actually good at. I actually understood the math well, and I was quite good at it. But unfortunately, the professor was not one who I had a particularly good opinion of, and as such, I didn't have as good a time, even though I was doing academically well in that course.
Okay. Wow.
And I think that's the end of my little story. It was
There you go. Sometimes you like end up in places that don't make sense. I feel like that was me, not in school, but in RCIA. I showed up very skeptical. I was told it was like a place to learn about Catholicism. It was a class to learn about Catholicism. I showed up and I was like, "This isn't where people are learning about Catholicism. This is where people are going to become Catholic."
Wait, hold up. You showed up at RCIA just because you thought it was like a course?
Yeah, yeah, straight up. I
Oh,
was
that's
told.
hilarious.
Yeah, my best friend got me good. That he was like, "Yeah, yeah,
And
come on,
and, and
Mama."
and how did the priest react? Did he just like not blink an eye? What
Well, it
happened
was
there?
two deacons for it was at the cathedral, local cathedral. It was
Okay.
two deacons, and I wasn't mean because it's not in my nature to like be rude to people, but I asked
Uh,
questions that like a guy who is looking to become a Catholic would not ask.
well, I'd ask you to
Right.
repeat the question, but I'm not sure how we'll woman think about that.
I mean, I asked about some scandals, right? And I asked about like some tough questions about, um, at the time, like that I didn't understand, right? About different like because I was pretty basic in my social. I was pretty normal in my social teachings, right? Like I wasn't like I wasn't an American leftist. I don't want to take that thing, but I was pretty agnostic. So I was like, well, what if I don't care about this thing? So, anyways, I asked some tough questions, and I'm sure it became very apparent to them, and it also became apparent to me based on what other people were talking about that they were all like here to join church. And I was like, okay. And so the priests were like, no, no, just, or the deacons were like, keep showing up. And so I just kept showing up, and they
Yeah.
kept answering questions. And eventually I liked what I heard. And then it was like, okay, how do I transition this? Sometimes you have to take something, right? Even in school, that is educational knowledge, like you've learned this, the theoretical knowledge, now you have to go make it into practical knowledge. So eventually I like went to a mass, and like that was it. Like and then I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. And it was funny as all get out though, because I got tricked. I was like, oh, I'll just go do this, I'll go do this thing and learn about Catholics. And then it was, no, this is where people go to. And then my best friend literally told me to come to the class just for purely scholarly endeavors.
This is
He's like,
this is like what everyone's hope. Well, not everyone. This is what I think some people are hoping will happen when H-Town finally find an RCIA which gives donuts.
I wish they gave donuts. They had candy bars, but at the time I was like really, really fit. Like nowadays I'm not big or anything, but I'm not as fit as I was then. And so like I was like I like every time I went, it was like a test of willpower to not eat the candy bars that were given to me.
All
I
right.
was like,
Oh, here's a question. Clubs. What, were you involved in clubs? I think you've mentioned wrestling on previous episodes, but
yes, yes, I would wrestle, and then and then at different times throughout the year, I would then leave. This is gonna surprise a lot of people. I was a thespian, so I would leave wrestling
ooh,
practice. I would, go to the theater, and we would do practice there. So I was a thespian. I wasn't in any of the musical plays. The Lord did not bless me with any musical talent at all, whether it's instrumental or vocal. Not my gift, but I'm a pretty animated person, and I can throw my voice in a lot of ways, and I'm not scared to make a fool of myself. So it seemed like the brother who was, and by the way, it was a De La Salle school, but the brother who ran the theater department, he really seemed to like me, or at least what I could do. I never ever had a main part, but I was always like some really active ancillary part.
this is something that's going to really send a lot of people for a while. Uh, for first year of high school, I was the go-to audio systems guy for all
Oh,
of
you're the
the.
AV guy. Look at that.
Yeah, I was the one who basically uh I was the one who put together the system from the first time I went there. I was like, wow, this sucks. And for me to be saying something has bad audio, you know there's an issue. But then one of the teachers said, well, Jerma, if you think it sucks, why don't you go up there and have a look and see if there's anything you can do about it? And so I said, well, of course I'll do that. And then I went up there and I had a look. And lo and behold, there was something I could do about it. And then by the end of my time there, I'd added a bunch of upgrades to the system, and I was even asked to put together a list of things to purchase as a part of the supplementary budget, which unfortunately never panned out, but that was one of the first big things I got involved with. So,
That's pretty cool, actually.
hmm
AV stuff is really fun. It's a little more complicated than people assume.
hmm
Otherwise, if you don't know, if you're not good at it, you'll end up just producing feedback, and everybody will just be hearing "wee" the whole
oh,
time.
that's funny. I actually had to have a guy stand by to hear for me.
Oh, that actually, I didn't even think about that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you'd have to have
Yeah,
a guy to stand by for you. Yeah.
and it worked. It solved a lot of problems, and it made things generally better. But it was a very interesting point, and that actually kind of because I stepped up and said, you know what, this is, I'm going to do something about this. It actually changed the trajectory of my life in a surprisingly consequential way.
Okay. Nice.
But
That's all. That's always interesting. Those things always surprise you.
yeah, there was, but this is another club. There was a club for hide and seek.
What?
That was a club you just play hide and seek.
That's amazing. The hide and
Oh, and it
seek
was
club.
very much.
That's great.
It was a blast. It was a wonderful experience.
The hide and seek club. I would totally sign up for that. That sounds like a blast. There. It's funny that they have like goofy clubs like that.
There was also a sword fighting club.
It was different than fencing.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
foam
okay.
swords, and you just
Uh,
wailed on each other. It wasn't even like point based, I believe.
That's pretty funny. We didn't have fencing or anything. We did have we had a Smash Brothers club.
Ooh.
It was pretty fun back when Melee was big.
Mhm.
But each
The
room had a projector, and I think they played on that.
I never really gotten into any of the Smash Brothers games until I was at a party with a bunch of friends, and I got handed a controller, and I was like, you know what? I've heard memes about this Kirby fellow.
I appreciate that you immediately picked the F tier character. Let's go.
Uh, so I so I picked Kirby, and then I won every single match I played that night,
Nice.
and it was an experience. And
There
since
you go.
then, I haven't really, well, I played Smash again with this one of the same friends, but that time, when I picked Kirby again, this time they stomped me. Because I think they may have actually practiced to make sure that I couldn't Kirby on. Uh, but I was never particularly good at fighting games.
Well, it's good news for you is that if you ask the fighting game community, Smash Brothers is not a fighting game.
If you have to, this is just the no true Scotsman fallacy at this point, isn't it?
I ran all of the regional and local Smash Brothers tournaments, so I should know. Those people don't accept us.
Why not?
To
Did you
be
have fun?
complete, to be completely fair, it doesn't function like a fighting game does. It doesn't.
Because you
If
don't
it,
have.
were- you don't have health bars,
Okay, yeah.
um, yeah, the hit stun concept is completely different. Even the way you play it's completely different. Like fighting games are really predicated on the ability to like play defense, and you don't have a shield in a fighting game. So, and rolling wasn't really a thing back when Melee existed. Like in fighting games, it wasn't a thing. So there was some stuff like that that went on. I think really also I think the big differentiator was like in a fighting game you had, you had a certain amount of health, and at that point you were done. In Smash Brothers, you could barely survive for a long period of time with the right characters, despite what your health percentage would say.
Yeah.
And so they really didn't want to accept us. I think also there were at the time there were almost like none of the competitive fighting games were played on GameCube, and Smash Brothers was only on the GameCube. So it was just and the way, like I said, the way you played it was totally differently. Totally,
Yeah,
even the way the controller was laid out was different. I understood their argument, but it was a fighting game. I just like to
yeah.
pick at them about the fact that it was classified as a fighting game, but they didn't want to accept it.
Yeah, it's one of the things where like the Mortal Kombat and Tekken games are like, okay, they're their own things. And then I've noticed in the last few years there's been a bunch of fighting games which are like, what if what if we took all the DC characters and then they fought? And then what if we took anime characters? And now you can play a fighting game where it's like, oh, there is Luffy One Punch getting comboed by Sasuke. What?
Shonen, yes, the Shonen Jump games. That's
Um,
funny. No, that's true. It's a little different. Even then, like the fighting game people are still going to stick to their basics.
mhm,
There's been a few games that have broken through, but they're going to stick to their basics.
yeah.
Those they are pretty dedicated though. But I found that people who are good at fighting games are also good at Smash Brothers. So
Mm.
it's one half dozen to the other. Then they have their preferred platform and all that jazz. So, but they were all pretty fun people. So,
Well,
but you're right.
unfortunately,
Like there's crazy games. What'd
yeah.
you say?
Well, unfortunately, on this note, we're coming toward the end of the episode.
Oh
So,
yes, and we're deviating from the school script, so this is a good time to end.
yeah. Well, do you have anything to say before we get going?
No, for those of you who are about to start school, I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to
Mhm.
buckle down and get a good start because recovery is a lot harder than maintaining a good pace. So that would be my ultimate, and make sure to get my ultimate advice, and also make sure to get some sleep. Come on, guys,
Oh, yeah.
go to bed.
That's one of the things one of my TAs would do, is he'd start every session with asking everyone who here has slept more than 8 hours a week. So 8 hours a week, 8 hours a night.
I was gonna say a
And
week. Oh,
hopefully everyone. Now, in
yep,
some university students, I wouldn't be surprised if some people didn't put up their hands, but make
yep,
sure to get
yep.
enough sleep. That
That's
that will
right.
cause you more trouble than anything else.
And I promise the video game can wait.
The
That
video
was
game can wait. It will be there. Your I
my,
know your bed will be there too, but you should still sleep. And on that note, I've been Jerma.
and I'm Papa Llama.